so much. I remember my Aunt Mabel. She is my grandmother's sister and such a sweet, beautiful woman. And she always called her son Dick. So we always thought of him as Dick Hughes. And so it's really hard for all of us. We're saying Dick Rick, because he goes by Rick now. And I believe that their family, as a gift to their father and grandfather, is going to have their family portrait done while they're all together and make sure that he gets a good picture of all of his kids. We honored him just now because he is the oldest living male descendant of Sam and Atanasia Hughes. And now we're going to pay tribute to the oldest female descendant of Sam and Atanasia Hughes, and it's my mother. You all recognize who Dick is, right? You see where he is? Well, here's my mom here. Mom, do you want to stand up a second so people see who you are? She's the sweet, beautiful heart in the front row. When I told Mom that we were going to spotlight her life at the Hughes family reunion because she was the oldest living descendant of Sam and Atanasia Hughes, she groaned at me and said, "Oh, that's an awful title. I don't want to be known as the oldest anything." Is that going to be my claim to fame? Well, no, Mother. Although you will be turning 85 next month, and you are the great-granddaughter of Sam and Atanasia Hughes, the magic of your life is not so much about how many years you've lived, but more about the many lives that you have enriched with your love, laughter, wisdom, strength of character, and depth of spirituality. I would like to share with all of the rest of you just a few events of my mother's life so that you too can catch the glimpse of the magic of Patricia Frances Black Stratton, got Hughes on the mind. Patsy Black was born on 26th of July, 1919 in San Francisco, California. Her parents, Margaret and Elizabeth Black, lived in Winslow, Arizona, but her mother went to California to have her baby because she had difficulty with her first two pregnancies. Patsy's link to Atanasia and Sam is through her mother. Margaret Glencarn Treat, better known as Maggie or Toady, because of her white blonde hair as a child, which later became a rich chestnut color, in much the same way that Patsy's changed from a blonde to a dark brown. Toadie's mother was Margaret Maggie Hughes, who married Frank Shrewsbury Treat. Maggie Hughes Treat was the fourth child and second oldest daughter of Sam and Atanasia. Maggie is hidden in this picture because of Sam and Atanasia and Lizzie, because she was born just a short time later. Patsy's father and mother owned a jewelry store, a gift store, and then later a dress shop. Elmer was a watchmaker and jeweler, and Margaret was known for her lovely dresses and kind demeanor. They were in business in Winslow for over 30 years, and then in Glendale, Arizona, totaling over 60 years. She recalls her relationship with her only sister and parents as sometimes frustrating. Her older sister, Betty, was the pretty one. She would sit and read so quietly and keep her ruffled dresses neat and pressed. Her mother would often set her in the display window of the store as a living mannequin. My mother, on the other hand, was a tomboy. While Betty was quietly reading, my mother was turning cartwheels on the sidewalk in front of the store or running up and down the stairs of the shops next door. After school, they would go to the store to do their homework. Then Grandma would give them money to buy something to fix for dinner. Mother earned her parents' respect by doing the lion's share in preparing the meals and doing the chores. She's an excellent cook and housekeeper and a gracious hostess as a result. She loved family outings. She's a little girl sitting so daintily in the lower left corner waving her napkin. She also loved to go rabbit hunting with her father in Holbrook, deer and turkey hunting at Greer, and fishing all over northern Arizona. She was a very beautiful young woman, but she wanted to be a boy so badly that when she was about 10 years old, her mother told her that if she stood behind the bedroom door crossed her fingers and closed her eyes real tight and wished to be a boy, it would happen. She did it several times, but fortunately for us, it didn't work. While Elmer served on the Winslow City Council for 18 years, and then as the mayor, he presided over the building of the first ballpark, paved the streets, and helped build the first airport. Because Pat loved to swim, he also built the first city pool. In fact, Patsy got to be the first to swim in it. While inspecting the pool the night before it officially opened, the members of the city council could see how badly she wanted to swim, so they picked her up and threw her in, clothes and all. Here is a picture of Patsy with her cousin, Richard Treat Spooner. He is the oldest living male descendant of San Bernardino. Rick, how do you like that title? Pat enjoyed a diversified youth. She and her sister Betty did exhibition tap dancing for the various clubs and also entertained the audience during the intermission at the Rialto Theater in Winslow. Because she loved the outdoors so much, she and Betty and her friends would frequently walk the 7 miles out to Clear Creek to go swimming and diving off the old bridge. She became an excellent swimmer. She won several medals in competitive swimming and diving competitions. She even broke her own records. At the University of Arizona, she devoted much of her energy in performing with the synchronized swimming team and participated in many university and community athletic events. There were no organized sports for women at her high school, so when she heard about an all-state track meet being held in Flagstaff, Arizona, just an hour and a half east of Winslow, West Winslow, she talked to her friend Lucille Brown into going with her. When they asked the high school principal to sponsor them, he thought it would be a great idea, so off they went to compete, never having even seen a track meet before. For years, they would giggle when they saw each other as they recalled the events of that Saturday. They entered every competition available, even the 4-man relay. The two of them just kept passing the baton off to each other as they circled around the track. They actually won some first-place ribbons, and to their amazement, they came in 3rd place overall in the entire state. As a teenager, she channeled her enthusiasm for life into activities at school, and although she was a good student, she was best known for her cheerleading ability. After being a cheerleader for 2 years in junior high, she was voted Winslow High School's only cheerleader for 4 years in high school. For a time, she went to Los Angeles City College while her older sister Betty attended UCLA. Pat was a starter on the hockey team. She then moved to Tucson and went to the U of A. The upperclassmen wanted to embarrass the new freshmen, so they asked Pat to come up in front of a large student assembly and lead a cheer. She did such a good job that the upperclassmen asked her on the spot to be a U of A cheerleader. She met Charles Lindbergh in Winslow as a young teenager and decided to become a pilot. She received her pilot's license in Flagstaff before she was 19 years old. In 1938, the year after we lost Amelia Earhart, she enrolled in an aviator's class. 30 started the class, 9 passed the written test, and only 4 got their pilot's license, and Pat was the only female. She thought things couldn't get much better until Clifford Stratton came into her life. Although Mom was breaking school records for diving on her way to the Olympics, she had to leave the U of A mid-year in order to earn enough money to return for another semester. In the morning, she managed the breakfast and lunch counter at the local drugstore. During the day, she managed the catalog department at Sears and was the cashier at the movie theater at night. My dad was hired by the Winslow High School to head up the Commerce Business Department and to help with a particularly unruly class of students and to help coach. He came to Winslow from Round Valley High School, where he had taught and coached football for 3 years. However, since Cliff went home to Utah during the summers and holidays, and Patsy was away during the school year, they didn't meet until the middle of his 3rd year of teaching at Winslow. The good news was that my parents-to-be were finally in the same place at the same time. The bad news was that she was so tired from working 3 jobs, she kept falling asleep on their dates. My dad liked to tell the story of when they were dating. If they passed one of Dad's students on the street, they would say enthusiastically, "Hi, Patsy," and then quite solemnly, "Hello, Mr. Stratton." They met at a dance at the American Legion Hall in Winslow. At the dance, Cliff got a friend to introduce him to Pat. He asked Pat for a dance, but her dance card was full. She offered him the 13th dance. He said, "I want to dance with you tonight." He was determined, so he stood around until one of her scheduled partners was late. He'd gone out back to get a drink. So Cliff quickly stepped in for the dance. She canceled all of the rest of her partners that evening, and they danced every dance together. The next day, he came into the Central Drug for breakfast, and he received a VIP service. Their engagement tea at the La Posada was well attended by leaders of business and government from much of northern Arizona. They were quite the talk of the town. 9 months after their first dance, on July 28, 1941, the Episcopal bishop from Phoenix married them in the Episcopal Church in Winslow. During that summer, Cliff hired out on the railroad and then continued to work for the Santa Fe for 41 years as a brakeman and conductor. He also became a rules examiner, teaching classes and giving exams to Santa Fe employees, qualifying them for promotions. On the night Cliff proposed to Pat, they agreed that they would have 2 major priorities for their family. If they were ever blessed with children, they would receive all of the education they wanted, and 2, all of the spiritual guidance they sought. Their family grew quickly with Carol Ann, then Clifford James, and Margaret Emma. Cliff often said, "We have eeny, meeny, and miny, and no mo." But 9 years later, they were happily surprised with the birth of Charles Elmer. Chuck was their caboose. As for their goal of providing spiritual guidance for their children, our mother set the example for us when she was just a child. A story of her life would not be complete without mentioning her own personal search for faith. She said that all of her life she'd been searching for that missing part of herself. She can't remember a time when she didn't have an overwhelming love for her Heavenly Father and a desire to know more about Him. She began to read the Bible as soon as she was able to read. She enjoyed the special feeling that would envelop her when she prayed. When she was 8 years old, she pleaded with her parents to allow her to go to church, any church. Her parents worked hard 6 days a week, so Sunday was their only day to catch up on domestic chores and rest. Although they believed in God and prayed, they didn't attend church very often. Grandpa Black was raised a Quaker, and Grandma was an Episcopalian. They didn't object to her going to church. They were just too busy and too tired to take her. So when she was 8, she started going to church, the one closest to her home. As she got older and could walk farther, she attended other churches until she was a member of every church in her little town of Winslow, Arizona. She was a friend to all and made everyone feel special. When she walked through town, everyone smiled and waved, "Hi, Patsy." 5 months after they were married, the U.S. was pulled into World War II. Upon hearing about Pearl Harbor, my father drove to Phoenix to enlist. They turned him down because they said he could do more for the war effort by keeping the trains running for the troops and supplies. And besides, he had flat feet. With their world in turmoil, they began their family, but they didn't attend church as often. My mother wanted her children raised in one church and wanted them to attend as a family, having missed that in her own life. My mother's prayers were answered one sunny afternoon when an old basketball teammate and school chum of my dad's came to visit with his wife. While they were talking in the living room, the wife told Mom of her love of Christ and His church and what it meant to their young family. Mom said a sweet, warm feeling rushed through her from head to toe. She decided then and there that that's what she wanted, that depth of faith for her children. She called the Mormon missionaries and asked for lessons, and in time asked to be baptized. She said she was home at last. And through her loving example, our father began attending church again. With the encouragement of my older sister Carol, my parents renewed their wedding vows in the Arizona temple at their 18th anniversary. In time, all of their children were married in that same temple and have found peace in their faith. They also achieved their second goal. All of their children earned advanced degrees from the U of A, ASU.
Hey, that's me. Hey, that's me.
He's the good-looking one. My son had to put that in. During the 13 years it took to educate her children, Pat worked in the Winslow Memorial Hospital, helping new mothers and their babies. She currently has 26 grandchildren and 31 great-grandchildren. After Cliff retired, they served as welfare services missionaries in Arizona and Montana. They particularly enjoyed teaching adults to read and cheering on the participants of the Special Olympics. Upon returning at age 65, Cliff was called a service bishop for 3 years. Before closing, may I share some of Pat's memories of the time she spent with her great-grandmother, Atanasia Hughes. And note, I called her grandmother, not grandma, because she didn't like that title. She wanted to be grandmother. So summers in Tucson, as you know, are very hot. And although Grandfather Hughes had passed away 2 years before Pat was born, his custom of sleeping outdoors was still being practiced, which made her visits to grandmother's home even more of an adventure. She remembers that Atanasia always had a white tablecloth on the big table and always had a big pot of beans on the stove in case someone came by. Pat was also just as kind-hearted. I remember many times when Mom would be serving a meal in our backyard to some poor hobo off the railroad, which was just 2 blocks away from our home. In fact, once she noticed a strange symbol on the curb in front of our home. Mom later found out that a hobo had put it there to let others know that hers was a friendly home where a meal could be found. No matter a person's situation in life, they would be made welcome at Pat's or Atanasia's table. Once when Mom was a young girl visiting her grandmother, she was very fidgety as a young children sometimes are. Her grandmother wriggled her finger at her in a "come here, come with me" gesture and took Mom to her room. Well, no one ever went to Grandma Hughes's room without an invitation. I think Mom expected a scolding, but instead, Grandmother gave Mom the little handkerchief box that looks like a tiny couch covered in red velvet that is currently displayed in a museum. She remembers playing in the pomegranate trees and moving among the roses in her grandmother's backyard with her younger cousin, Lolito, and her older cousin, Julito, and her daughter and her granddaughter were both here. They also enjoyed going to his backyard to watch Aunt Peppa's birds. She remembers when her grandmother Atanasia died in November of 1934. Mom was in junior high school. She was with a group of friends and cousins at a movie when someone came in and whispered to her that her grandmother had eaten some old cabbage, gotten a stomachache, and died. Well, although Pat's sweetheart of 55 years also passed away just in April 26th of 1996, she continues in her search for knowledge by taking classes at the local university and spending lots of time on the internet. She swims as often as possible, is active in her local women's club and church. She spends Monday evenings with old friends and is learning how to do the many little things that Dad always did for her. So, Mom, everyone's life is better for having you as a part of it. Your love and kindness have been generously sprinkled on all of us. And although you don't like the title of the oldest living descendant of Sam and Atanasia Hughes, titles and relationships do define your life. You are a nurse, a confidant, a cheerleader, a friend, a loving wife, a homemaker, a pilot, a nutritionist, a coach, a spiritual advisor, a shining example of womanhood, and a mother to anyone who needed one. In fact, our friends would often come over, whether we were home or not, just to talk to our mom. I'm grateful for the example that you have set of unconditional love, absolute faith in God, and a contagious enthusiasm for life. This email I received from Mom shows you one final glimpse into the magic that is Patricia Frances Black Stratton. Dear Megs, what a great writer you are. Thank you so much. Like the song says, thanks for the memories. Gotta run. My lawn man is here and it's canasta day. Love, Mom. Thank you. We have for our mother as a gift, if my husband Cheryl would give it to my mom. Chuck put together a collage, this collage, and we're giving that to my mom so that she has all of her favorite pictures of her sweetheart next to her bed that she can enjoy. We are down to the last item. We have a few housekeeping chores. And then we also want to, we've left enough time for those of you who have kindly brought items, heirlooms and things that you might tell us about them and share them with us. Let me do the housekeeping chores first, and then those of you who have things, if you would like to either bring them up and talk with the mic for just a moment, or just tell us where they are if you'd rather not bring them up. There is a ball game tonight that I remind those of you who didn't hear last night. The Trappers versus the Sign-Grinders are playing at 7 o'clock. Marcia, raise your hand. She has maps and information for you. They're on the table back there. The reason we're inviting you all to go is simply because she's arranged for Mom, as the oldest living descendant, to throw in the first pitch. And so those of you who would like to go and be there and see that momentous event, that will happen at 7 o'clock. Yes? The gates open at 6. Oh, she's going to be throwing the ball about 6:45. So the minute this is over, you can hop in the cars and get over there. And they have hot dogs and things that you can buy, and there's maps back in the back and information. And then tomorrow, because some of you have to catch early airplane flights, we're hoping that no one objects, but because it's so hot and everything else and people wanting to catch planes, the start time tomorrow, instead of being 8:30, is going to be 5 o'clock. No, I'm kidding. I just want to make sure you were paying attention. Okay, it's going to be 8 o'clock. We're moving it up just a half an hour. And any of you who who feel strong and want to be there at 7:30 to help Barbara Tenzio, she and her husband and son are putting up a couple of canopies for us. And if any of you are local and have some lawn chairs or folding chairs that you could do, please throw those in your car for us. The whole thing is only going to take about